On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks are officially cursed, but their issues in the game against the Houston Rockets were self-inflicted. We'll tell you what the biggest ones were on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
We have Kyrie.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
Still can't even help it.
And welcome. You're locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager at the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being in every day or making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. Subscribe to our free Locked On Mavs newsletter, your one stop for the best news and analysis on the Dallas Mavericks and the NBA straight to your inbox every day. Joining me on a post-game show, the post-game prodigy. What you got for me, Slightly Biased?
We got to do some soul searching. Someone is mad at us. We got to figure out who it is and for what.
I know it's not Isaac, but we may have to have a come to Jesus moment, and I may have to get the guitar out.
we might need one.
Do an altar call, do some kind of seance to get this team. We'll talk about the Mavs' loss to the Houston Rockets. We'll talk about some of their biggest issues. We'll talk about the Gafford thing. That was definitely a thing in this game. We'll talk about the injury to PJ Washington. We'll talk about that Mavs blowing another early lead, but we'll talk about some of the good things. Lively returned. Grimes played really well as well. What does that mean for the Mavericks? But let's start here. To me, the biggest issue in this Houston Rockets game, the Mavs offense just could not get anything going. This Houston Rockets defense is very good. They're number 2 in the NBA for a reason. They're a very good defense. They play really hard. They have athletes all over the place. They were missing maybe their 2 best defenders, though, in Amen Thompson and Tari Eason. Dylan Brooks obviously up there for sure. But in this one, you thought, oh, man, maybe the Mavs caught a break since they had a bunch of injuries themselves. But Kyrie Irving, 37 minutes, 16 points, 2 assists in this game. It's just not going to be enough for you. And I know that they were sending doubles at him. They were trying to take him out, and they were trying to make the other Mavs beat them. But it just didn't seem like anybody that didn't have a cohesive offense that they were going to go to in a game like this. The Rockets totally took them out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, with all of the injuries the Mavericks have at this point, Kyrie being great offensively, it has to happen pretty much for the Mavs to win games. And if it's not there, if you are going to say, oh, well, they're sending doubles, they're trapping Kyrie, they're trying to get the ball out of his hands, you got to get that offense from somewhere else. And with Luka out, that's just it's not consistent enough. Like we've done this, Spencer Dinwiddie thing. 30 points against the Kings. What did he have tonight? 9 points, 8. I think 8 points. So, and that's to be expected. Like you're not expecting Spencer Dinwiddie to score 30 points a game. So that some of these guys are going to be inconsistent. And Kyrie, for all of the great things that he does, we know that it's not the Luka, just give me the ball, I'm taking the game over. It doesn't matter what coverages I'm getting. Like you can't really take me out of a game. We've seen there's matchups and there's teams with lengthy defenders and athletes where you can kind of neutralize Kyrie a little bit. And, that's what we saw tonight. They made it an effort, and you're going to see this all the time in the next month where teams are going to double you, teams are going to trap you, teams are going to blitz you on ball screens. And it's going to be up to everybody else on the Mavs to score off of that. It's going to be up to Kyrie to read those defenses, find the open guy. He had 4 turnovers and 2 assists. Like that's not a number you want. If your lead ball handler is going to see so much attention, you would like that assist number to be a little bit higher.
I don't even know if he was their lead ball handler tonight because they did the thing with like they do with Luka where somebody else brings the ball up and then he gets the ball later. But then when he was guarded by Dylan Brooks, they didn't even look his way sometimes. And I think part of this is the tone that was set early by the Rockets and that was allowed to be set early by the Rockets. The Rockets were allowed to be really physical. The stuff that Dylan Brooks was allowed to do against Kyrie was just like he's just not going to be able to get any leverage or get any motion or movement. Kyrie has motion, but not against Dylan Brooks apparently in this game. And so the Mavs were like, all right, we'll let the other guys beat us if you're going to be allowed to play that physical with Dylan Brooks. And obviously the Mavs fouled a million times in the first half. That was a huge issue too. They just kept fouling on defense. They couldn't stop. There's a couple questionable calls here or there, sure, but the Mavs were just sending them to the free throw line over and over again. The Rockets had a 50% free throw rate in the first half, meaning that, like, on average, they'd take like 50 free throws if the game played out that way the whole game. They only finished with 23, which is the Rockets' average. But that first half was brutal, and I think that sort of set the tone to the disjointedness of the Mavs' offense on the other end too. Is that they were all right? Well, we're just going to let Dylan Brooks take Kyrie, and then we're going to try to play off of him. And then you had Clay with 5 awful turnovers. Mavs had 20 turnovers total. You mentioned Kyrie's turnovers, and the Rockets turned those into 22 points off of those turnovers. And the thing about the Rockets that is so interesting, I was just looking them up before this game and just seeing some of their latest stats. They are the number 10 offense in the NBA. I would not think of them as a top 10 offense, but they are right now. They have the 29th ranked effective field goal percentage. They don't shoot well from anywhere on the court. Anywhere. Like there's literally across the board, mid-range shots at the rim, 3-point shots, non-corner threes, corner threes. They don't shoot well at all. They're below average or even like bottom 5 in the league shooting across the board. So they're not good at that. They're also 26th in the NBA in half-court offense, which is like a good indicator for a good playoff team, which we can get to later on them. But they against a set defense, they're not very good at all getting their own shot and getting a bucket. But what they do well is they turn these turnovers and they turn their really great defense into offense. And then they take advantage. They got to the free throw line early in this game, turned a Mavs 10-point lead into a Rockets 12-point lead. It felt really, really fast in that second quarter. And the Rockets just took advantage of it.
Yeah, and I mean, the turnover woes for the Mavs. I mean, this has been a kind of a thing that we've touched on here. This team has, in the Luka era, been great at not turning the ball over. A couple of reasons for that. One, Luka is one of the best offensive engines we've seen in quite some time. But also, two, they play at a slower pace. They just don't turn the ball over that much. And it's been, it hasn't been like that big of a thing. It's not like they lead the league in turnovers or anything like that. But those turnover numbers are starting to creep up. 20 in this game tonight. I mean, that's very difficult to overcome. We talked about they had 18 turnovers in that game against the Kings. We talked about how in that game the Kings took, I don't remember what the final number. It was like 26 more shots than the Dallas Mavericks in that game. Tonight against the Rockets took 14 more shots. Yeah. And you actually I thought you did a great job on the glass. That was something I was really concerned about.
4 offensive rebounds for the Rockets.
4 offensive rebounds. That's tremendous. They got 12 second chance points off those 4 offensive rebounds, but you did a really good job limiting those. But those extra shots come with the turnovers. And this is exactly what we said in the Kings game. If you're already missing so many guys, you're already going to be up against it offensively because of that, 1. And 2, you're playing a great defensive team. Like the Rockets really are a tremendous defensive team, even without Amin Thompson and Tari Eason. You can't give the other team 14 more shots. Like that's going to be such a difficult hole to climb out of. So difficult.
If you're what do you want Kyrie to do in a game like this where they're playing physical against him? He's getting the doubles. We've seen this against the Thunder in the playoffs last year. We saw it against the Celtics in the playoffs. Like those games you mentioned where a team can kind of take Kyrie out of it. I saw in this game, especially in that third quarter, where he really tried to get his own shot a couple times, more so than the first half. As soon as Dylan Brooks was not on him, if it was Fred VanVleet or anybody else in front of him, he's going. Like as soon as he does that. And I wonder if there's a way for them to take advantage of cross matches more because he's not guarding Dylan Brooks on the other end. And so I wonder if it's pushing out in transition more and getting Kyrie the ball in transition first. If you can do that and get Kyrie some more opportunities so he's not playing against a Dylan Brooks set defense where a help defender can come over as quick as possible.
Yeah, that's really, you just got to play with, like you said, you got to try to get cross matches and just, you got to play with some more pace would be the thing with Kyrie. And there's also some other stuff you can do. Like you can run actions to try and get the switches that you want. But we've seen teams, they top lock Kyrie. Like they don't want Kyrie coming off the dribble handoffs. Like they make getting the ball to Kyrie Irving. We've seen this with Luka at times this year too. So difficult at times, but that's just up to the team to make, the adjustments. And they just, they didn't play with really any pace at all tonight. This was a very slow game because there was a lot of fouls, a lot of whistles, a bunch of stuff like that. The Rockets did not allow the Mavericks to get out and run in transition very much. And that led to the Mavs having to grind it out in the half court against one of the best half court defenses in the NBA. So just got to play with some pace, get Kyrie going out.
Mavs a 10% free throw rate either. They didn't get to the line, so they didn't get any advantage there. They didn't offensive rebound the ball themselves at all, so they didn't get other opportunities in other areas. And so it is just, all right, how can you get your half court offense better, and how could you get more opportunities? It is funny, though. You mentioned it's so hard to get the ball to Kyrie. The Mavs are trying it on one hand to start Luka and start Kyrie off the ball to begin possessions, but then it becomes so hard sometimes to get them the ball in those possessions that it becomes, an issue that it's like, all right, well, are we making up? Should we just give Kyrie the ball to start a possession? That way we can actually get into what our actions are instead of having to mess around and figure out a way to get him the ball. It's like, all right, well, Which one do we want?
Yeah.
Because it takes just as much effort for him to get the ball if he doesn't start with the ball as it would if he started with it and had to
games
fight
like
through.
These where I'm like, dude, just let him bring the ball up the court.
Yeah.
Like, what are we trying? Who are we fooling here?
Well, it's kind of the game within the game, which is what I've had a hard time with this Mavericks team trying to play the game within the game, resting guys like they did against the Kings the other night, where we go, man, can they just
take about that in a bit?
All right, we'll go in on that. We'll talk about PJ's injury. We'll talk about Daniel Gafford, the issues that he had in this game compared to Dereck Lively. We'll talk about all that and more coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Dallas Mavericks is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code Locked On NBA. Soon as I saw the Texas Longhorns were going to be playing in Jerry World, playing in AT&T Stadium, I started looking it up on Game Time. And you know what? They didn't even have their opponent yet, and they already had tickets on Game Time. You know Game Time is going to have those tickets, and they're expensive. I'll tell you that. I don't think I'm going to go, but I thought about it. And you can go check out and see those tickets on Game Time. And you can get tickets for your favorite event, not just sports. You can get it for concerts, comedy, theater. I've used it for all different kinds of things. I love going to different kinds of events like that. And I use Game Time because you can get last-minute tickets at the lowest prices with Game Time picks. The super deal is particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. The app's all-in pricing shows total cost up front with no fees at checkout that will surprise you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, what we call our listeners, listening every day, watching every day, wherever you're watching this. If you're watching on YouTube or KFAA, shout out to everybody watching on KFAA that's got their bunny ears and they're putting us on 4:30 every day. Shout out to you. Or if you're coming over from Slightly Biased, great YouTube channel. Shout out to all of you guys.
Shout out to you. We fixed the mic.
The mic was fixed. I was so proud of you. He texted me the next day. That was a big saga during the Kings game. Let's talk about some of the other Mavs issues. We mentioned the game within the game. The Mavs, they try to do this. They try to game the system. Like, all right, we're not going to start with Luka or Kyrie having the ball. We're going to rest these guys so that they can be ready long term. We're going to play this load management with these guys, and they do this with the refs in game where they commit a foul on one end, they're frustrated with not getting the foul on the other end, and then they don't play through it. Gafford has the flops for the offensive rebounds or the rebounds, and then he runs out and completely bites on a pump fake and goes through. But go off on the game within the game for the Mavs on resting guys.
This is what we said after the Kings game. We have to, as fans, there's highs and lows throughout the course of the season. And I've mentioned this before. It's been my take forever. Is like the players get on a plane, they fly home, they get treatment the next day, they have shoot around, they let it go so quickly. It lingers with the fans more than the players, 100%. But you just got to be comfortable with the fact that this team will punt games. It feels like they might take the regular season less seriously than any other team in the NBA. It feels like this sometimes. But I've been wondering now, you're going to inadvertently end up punting games because this team is just, since the start of last season, have they been so injured? They deal so many different injuries that you're going to end up losing games because you just don't have enough horses. And so a game like the Kings a few nights ago, it's like, man, that would, in retrospect, you lose by 10 points. The Kings were begging to lose that game it feels like, and you couldn't do it because you were resting so many guys. I struggle to understand it really. I get the reasoning behind it, but I guess what I'm saying is when you're already dealing with so many injuries, and look, I'm knocking on wood here. Kyrie's been healthy this season. Something's going to pop up at some point. That's just how Kyrie's been his whole career. There'll be something here or there that pops up. Hopefully it's nothing serious, but he'll probably have a 2 or 3 game absence at some point in the season, right? And that's going to be very difficult to win in those games. PJ's out. PJ sprains it. It just feels like anytime a Mavs player jumps or falls to the ground this season, it feels like a 3-week injury's on the way. PJ might miss a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from this knee sprain.
It's a right knee sprain. It's the same knee sprain that he had at the beginning of the season. I think he missed 5 games then.
5 games, and this team is 1-6 when PJ Washington does not start. 1-6. That's small sample, obviously, but man, it's just Basically what I'm saying is gear up for another 60 win pace February and March, because that's pretty much what's going to have to be required.
Slightly make me feel better after that.
I can't. I mean, this is just what it is. The way I was describing it in my chat, because everyone was dooming and glooming, is we know this team is great.
Yes,
we know that for
we already know that.
This isn't like last year where you got to the trade deadline and they were so injured, but we didn't really know if that team was good. And the first iteration of that team before the trades was not good. We knew that, right? Then they made the trades and they were great. But we know this team is very good. It's just, can they stay healthy? Because, man, it's been tough this year.
And the health of them is going to become an issue because they have not all played together that much. We've gone over how many games the top 9 has played together. It's less than 10. I think it's the top 9 if you count. I throw Dinwiddie and Grimes at the end there, and everybody else that you would expect. And I think they've really only played like 7 or 8 games all together, and so they're not going to have enough time to play together in order to get good enough to go and beat a Boston Celtics or a Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals or somebody like that, if they are able to get back there again and beat the teams in the West, first of all, right? But we've seen them beat most of the teams in the West already. So, man, it is one of those things. It's the blessing and the curse of Luka Doncic is what it is, because the thing about Luka is he can, and we're making this about Luka now, he can roll out of bed and give you 30.
Yeah.
Right. And so like he can come back from an injury and the Mavs not have very much chemistry. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, we just won a playoff series and we had no business winning that playoff series, you know, against the Suns or whoever, or come back. And all of a sudden we're going on a roll. And so when everything's great and everything's on all cylinders, the team looks awesome. But the other thing is when he's out, then the team doesn't have that same lift. You know, it's the problem of missing a superstar, which is an obvious thing to say, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, it is. It's just, it goes, when you have Luka, you have a chance always. Like, you always have a chance in a playoff series. He's one of the greatest playoff performers we've ever seen. Like, that's already in his young career. He's proven that. So this is why we mentioned this. This is why 2 of the 3 years of Kidd's career, they've been a middling team, around a middling team going into the trade deadline. I'm not even saying that's who they're going to be this year, because they're not, in my opinion, they're not a middle. Those 2 seasons that I'm talking about before, they were dealing with injuries, but those rosters were not good. Like, those rosters needed huge changes at the trade deadline. I don't think that's the case here. They just have to get healthy, but they feel comfortable because, well, we were the 5 seed last year, made the finals. We were the 4 seed a couple years ago and made the conference finals.
Beat the 1 seed.
Yeah, beat the 1 seed that won 65 games. Like, as long as we're there, we're good. So there's going to be just rough stretches during the season. It's just going to be the reality.
They're in the middle of one of those rough stretches right now.
Yes.
Just lost to Houston. They're about to play Cleveland on Friday. They'll play Memphis on Monday. The Lakers on Tuesday. Play Portland on Thursday, which you should say, oh, that's an easier game, but they've lost to Portland already. Have they lost twice to Portland? No, they lost once to Portland.
Once, but then the other game that they won was that insane.
The other one felt like a loss.
Yes. The miraculous shooting.
Then Denver twice. I mean, that's your upcoming slate here, and at least they have a decent enough cushion. But your point earlier is right. The hardest part about this is we know this team is very good. We've already seen it. We've seen what they're capable of. They went to the finals. They came in this year, and we think they got better. We've seen them already have good wins. We've seen them already take care of business when they're all together, and they just need their most important players. And their most important player is out. We know that for a month or so. And their second most important player, Kyrie, has been really good this season, but struggles when he's the number 1 sometimes in a game like this, because the defense can just completely surround him. And then your third most important player is PJ Washington, and now he's going to be out with an injury. I mean, it just keeps coming. And Lively just came back from an injury. The injury bug, the curse of the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do? In the YouTube comment section, text us to the Locked On Mavs Insiders line, tweet us, whatever you want. What should we do to reverse the curse? There's got to be something. There's got to be something we can do. Is there something that happened at the beginning of the season that would have cursed the Mavs?
Did they sell their soul to make the finals last year?
Well, they should have sold it to win. They should have gone the extra mile. Would you have taken a finals win if Luka was going to be out the whole season this year?
Well, I mean, so the Mavs win the finals, but Luka,
they win the title. Season? Yeah, they would have won the title last year.
Because then Luka could come back next year and we have a title under our belt. Guys miss seasons all the time. Guaranteed title, absolutely.
I don't know what they did, but they upset somebody in the basketball gods front office.
Someone.
This has been so frustrating. They just keep losing guys like this. I mean, we'll see with PJ. We don't know if it's anything serious or anything. The Mavs are obviously going to be very cautious with something like this because gestures to the whole rest of the injuries that they've dealt with this whole season.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a brutal one because he has become the heart and soul of this team. And when he's out, the team just doesn't have the same kind of, the vibes, for lack of a better term.
They don't have a replacement for him. Like they do not have anybody who does what PJ does on the roster.
Najee's got one more game of the suspension and he comes back, and that's a big return for the Mavs. Lively, hopefully in this next game will be out of a minutes restriction that he had tonight. But yeah, it doesn't seem like oof. they just need to get healthy overall and not have these absences of like 3 games here, 4 games here. It's just been brutal.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the frustrating part about it. It's just like we can't even sit here and be like, oh, this needs to happen. They need to do this. They need to do this. Fire this person. It's just like, no, they're the biggest takeaway is they need their horses back.
Last time the Mavs lost 5 out of 6 games, we did that.
I know. That was different though. They were healthy.
Different.
They look terrible.
Well, that's the thing. It's very different. Different circumstances. That was the team that, all right, they had their guys. They made a move. They had the roster, and we could see it, and they just weren't playing to that level. Now it's just they just keep missing guys. And yeah, there's things that they could do in a game like this. We'll talk about them that they could have done better. But yeah, it's just a struggle. Coming up, let's talk about some of the other issues the Mavs had in this game. I do want to talk about Gafford and his game, talk about Grimes, talk about Lively's return, and get into all that coming up.
I don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action and see what is available for you. Check it and check the NFL playoffs are almost here. It's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. I also want to check out the college football playoffs right now. Texas, Ohio State. Ohio State opens as a 5.5-point favorite. I don't know why that surprises me, but it does. Because Texas didn't play that great against ASU, but still. Texas is 3 and Ohio State 6, but 5.5-point favorite for Ohio State, even though it'll be basically a Texas home game. So check out that. If you're feeling good about that one, go ahead and see what you can get. Put down $5 and you can win $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So if it's your first one and you win that one with Texas, you get $250 to play with on the site for anything else. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. It's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, Slightly, I do want to talk about some of the other issues the Mavs had in this game. Daniel Gafford. Tough one. The discourse around Daniel Gafford online was immense, and it was loud, and there was a lot of, and it was probably the loudest 12 minutes that I've seen from a player this season, maybe, because he only played 12 minutes. He played 11 minutes and 45 seconds, but the Mavs were minus 27 in the minutes he played. He just could not do anything against Alfred Sengun. Sengun was a plus 21, the highest plus minus of any player on the Rockets. And just for a contrast, Lively was plus 5 in his 20 minutes that he played. And they're not playing together.
Yeah.
It was wild to see how much just those 12 minutes impacted this game.
They were saying on the broadcast, the Rockets broadcast apparently is what someone said to me, that he had the worst plus minus of any player in history when he under 10 minutes before he reached the 11-minute mark. So in a game like that's kind of shocking to believe, but then it's like minus 27 in 11 minutes. I don't think you guys realized how crazy that is. That's like
literally scoring every minute. Like they got outscored. They got outscored by 2 like every minute.
Yeah, I mean that is crazy. Obviously, plus minus can be a bit of a wonky stat, but like you see a number like that, you have to discuss it. Yeah, I mean Sengun played really well in this game, and he had a couple of nice shots, but the Mavs just struggled. I don't really even know how to describe minus 27 in 11 minutes. Everything that could go wrong. In order for that to happen, everything that could possibly go wrong would have had to have gone wrong, and that's what went down.
So they're not right about about his minutes. So there's been a couple players. God, is this NBA history? Oh my god. Okay, are you ready for this?
Yeah, but remember it was like minus 30 before he got to 10
It was
minutes.
it was minus 29 in 10 minutes. I remember that. I had that written down. But in under 12 minutes, worse than minus 27. There's only been 8 players in NBA history. James Wiseman in 2024 with the Pistons.
Good company.
Precious Achiuwa in 2022. Ben Uzo for the Rockets. Or the Raptors. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. Our boy Jason Terry, minus 29 for the Bucks in 2017.
I pretend to not see that.
Jason Terry played in 2017 as well. Vince Carter, poor one out for him. 2019 for the Hawks. Tariq Abdul-Wahad for the Magic in 2000. Bryn Forbes for the Bucks in 2021.
Oh, wow. I forgot about him.
And probable all-star this season, Norman Powell for the Clippers in 2023. Minus 35 in 11 minutes.
Oh, man.
So I just named all those players for a reason. Those are the only players that have a worse plus minus in the same amount of minutes or less than what Daniel Gafford did tonight. So it was a feat, and it showed, and the Rockets don't shoot well across the board. And if you give them, and they don't play well against set defenses. So if you give them automatic buckets in any moment of the game, 27 points, like a 27-point advantage in 12 minutes can be the game. You play even the rest of the game and you lose, you get blown out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, biting on, he had one possession where he ran out to the 3-point line, bit so hard on a Jabari Smith up fake. Jabari Smith drives baseline, and
it was like somebody set him the ball like volleyball.
Yeah.
He went out to spike it.
Yeah. I know. There's times like that where he's like, man, you're 7 feet. You're close to 7 feet. You don't need to be jumping that hard. You can close out. You can have a controlled closeout. He jumps a lot on those, but that's just a crazy stat. I mean, a guy playing 11 minutes isn't going to really swing a game for you necessarily. But when it's minus 27, you can look at that and be like, well, that's such a big swing.
It swung it to the point where the Mavs weren't going to be able to come back against the number 2 defense in the NBA and come back from a 10-point deficit, a 12-point deficit. That was going to be really difficult. The way Kyrie was playing, the way that the offense was operating for the Mavs, they were going to have to hit a ton of threes in order for them to come back from that. And so to go into that deficit, I think really did put them behind the 8 ball. And that was the biggest thing. And that we got to see the Gafford Lively comparison like so clearly with their plus minus in their minutes. Lively, 20 minutes plus 5. And it's not like he had a crazy great game. He had 4 fouls and he was struggling with foul trouble. He was going to be on a minutes restriction anyway. And so he basically played the minutes he was going to play. But I thought in Lively's return, I thought he looks pretty good. And his defense just stands out so much, and especially in a game like this.
Yeah, I thought Lively put up pretty crazy stat line in this game. 8 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 blocks, and a steal in 20 minutes of game. But he had some of the same problems that, these are the problems that have plagued Dereck Lively. And we talked about D-Live wanting to be a 30-minute per game guy and stuff like that. He has bad problems, and he had it in this game. And I don't know. I could maybe give him a pass and say, well, he knew he was going to be on a minute restriction, so maybe he plays a little bit more aggressively. But this is problems that sort of plague him regardless. But, biting on fakes and stuff like that, just you got to be a little bit more disciplined. I think that's stuff that will come as he continues to progress. But yeah, I just think offensively, especially when Kyrie's getting doubled and blitzed, Lively's playmaking in the middle of the floor makes the offense flow so much better. I mean, 6 assists in 20 minutes for a center is that's pretty impressive. A center who's not like your offensive hub,
He has been at times, though, and you can see him as the hub when Kyrie was getting that extra pressure, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, we need to go somewhere else with the ball and do something else. Lively sets a screen and just does a little handoff to Clay and gets him a wide open 3 because Şengün's playing in drop, and so he's dropping back, and all of a sudden it's just Jalen Green trying to chase around a Lively screen, which gives Clay an open 3. He doesn't need that much time. Hit a couple of threes in the first quarter. Hit 3 threes in the first quarter. One of them turned into a 2, but just off of those Lively handoff screens there. I want to talk about Quentin Grimes too. 17 points, led the Mavs in scoring, hit a couple of threes, had a couple of nasty finishes in transition. And I thought he was the most impressive player for the Mavs outside of Lively.
Yeah, I mean, he continues to be great. I mean, that step back 3, he generates a lot of space off of it. And I would be interested to see what his percentages are on those, because it doesn't feel like a low percentage shot. You think about the guys who should have green lights to shoot step back 3s. You think about your star players, and then that's about it. Outside of your stars, you don't really like seeing guys get too deep into their step back bags because it's a low percentage shot usually.
Except Dinwiddie's only allowed to take those. He can't take
Dinwiddie's is more of like a sidestep. But yeah, I mean, Grimes continues. Yeah, he continues to be really good, man. I've been really impressed with his off the dribble stuff. That's the stuff that has impressed me more than anything else that he's done. I figured he'd be a solid catch and shoot guy. I knew that he was, quick. I knew that he was a guy who would play hard defensively and give the Mavs something they desperately needed at the point of attack. But it is the off the dribble stuff that's like very encouraging, I would say.
Just got to put it together. These games, we're like, oh, PJ plays great. Dinwiddie plays great. Oh, this game, Grimes plays great. Lively plays great.
Yeah.
Just got to put it all together and put all the pieces into place. It's just so frustrating to see that we can see what this team is. We see the vision. And I know you listening, you see the vision of this team too. That's why you haven't checked out yet. And so that's frustrating. We haven't checked out. We'll continue to do shows all throughout the week and all throughout. We'll do post games as well. Slightly now for the post game on Friday after the Cavs game. I'm interested to see how the Mavs play against the Cavs at home. And we'll have all the rest of the games next week and continue on with this. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. Continue to be a Mavs insider. Subscribe to our newsletter. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. Peace out. Boom.
The sun will come up tomorrow.